Perfecting the tax lien, a sovereign claim to Treasury assets. 1. The nature of sovereignty and tax ownership. This section asserts that the individual, by right of their sovereign status under the original U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights, is the lawful owner of all taxes and credit instruments issued in their name. The government acts merely as a fiduciary administrator. Thus, any tax notice received is a notice of funds owed to the sovereign, not a demand for payment owed to the state. Footnote: this section repositions the taxpayer as the creditor and identifies the sovereign individual as the lawful recipient of tax-related funds. 2. Identifying and perfecting the tax lien. According to the doctrine presented, a tax lien must be perfected through a process of formal claim and evidentiary affirmation, often by engaging the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, TIGTA. If a tax notice or property tax statement is unclaimed, the lien is sold, allowing a third party to assert the sovereign's rights. The individual must use certified documentation to assert a prior claim, thereby establishing standing and nullifying unlawful usurpation. Footnote: this section explains the necessity of asserting and perfecting a lien before third parties illegitimately claim the sovereign's assets. 3. Jurisdiction of the private banker and the estate structure. The lawful claimant operates through a triadic structure: the estate EIN, the individual banker's EIN, and the foreign grantor trust EIN. This framework establishes legal and administrative control over the estate, the rights to issue or terminate letters of credit, and the sovereign's standing. These identifiers permit tax-exempt operations through a private, non-commercial, non-profit structure that lies outside the jurisdiction of state or federal agencies. Footnote: this section introduces the three-tiered EIN structure required to administer and reclaim sovereign estate assets. 4. Administrative recourse and the role of the Inspector General. Sovereigns may issue fraud complaints to the Office of Inspector General, OIG, or TIGTA for violations involving unauthorized use of estate assets, Social Security identifiers, or tax liens. These federal offices have operational authority to investigate and enforce corrective action. Filing under proper capacity and authority ensures redress, especially when agencies or municipalities attempt to monetize tax liens without legal standing. Footnote: this section discusses procedural remedies for fraud and usurpation involving estate taxation and lien misappropriation. 5. The de facto system versus constitutional sovereignty. Post-1933 statutory law and commercial legal systems function as a moral code under corporate bankruptcy, governed by religiously rooted legal interpretations. The sovereign individual retains rights under the original U.S. Constitution, wherein the separation of moral governance and public law was fundamental. Recognition of this dichotomy is essential in distinguishing between de facto codes and de jure authority. Footnote: this section distinguishes between constitutional sovereignty and the corporate legal structures imposed under commercial statutory law. 6. Reclaiming assets through the Treasury tax and lien system. The TIGTA, Treasury tax and loan, system is repurposed as a conduit through which liens and taxes can be reclaimed by the sovereign claimant using their EINs as 9-digit bank routing identifiers. These forms act as instruments of debt reclamation and repatriation of prepaid taxes, assets, and value currently held in mortmain, dead-hand estate accounts. Footnote: this section highlights the process of lien and tax asset reclamation using federal banking architecture and private identifiers. 7. Reframing common financial instruments as trust-based claims. Traffic tickets, property taxes, and mortgage documents are presented as lien instruments granted via the signature of the sovereign individual. Upon issuance, they become commercial instruments claimable through perfected lien filings. Thus, these notices are not obligations owed by the recipient, but notices of receivables due to the issuer under trust law. Footnote: this section redefines common debt and tax documents as receivable lien claims owed to the sovereign individual. 8. Private banking and the limitations of public jurisdiction. Property held under a private bank and administered by the sovereign's individual banker is immune to state and federal regulation. This includes immunity from liens, tickets, and tax levies. The banking function is executed privately, with assets held in a structure outside the public commercial domain, ensuring protection from jurisdictional overreach. Footnote: this section outlines how private banking structures confer jurisdictional immunity over sovereign assets. 9. The role of the Foreign Grantor Trust and Termination Authority. The Foreign Grantor Trust EIN grants the sovereign authority to terminate letters of credit and reclaim control over assets misused or claimed under commercial trust structures. This power is essential for dissolving fraudulent assignments, liens, and trusts enacted without sovereign consent. Termination reclaims full beneficial ownership. Footnote: this section explains how termination authority restores lawful ownership over sovereign assets held in trust. 10. Conclusion: sovereign action and due diligence. The path to reclaiming sovereign estate assets lies in the rigorous understanding and lawful use of IRS forms, e.g., 1099-A, 1040, 1041, EINs, and the principles of trust and lien law. Group-based movements and fraudulent schemes often fail due to lack of lawful standing and misapplication. Each individual must assert their position with precise knowledge, diligence, and constitutional awareness. Footnote: this section reaffirms the sovereign's individual obligation to research, act, and perfect claims under lawful authority.